340-1590 for details.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WSTU is brought to you by Sailfish Roofing, offering excellence, honesty, and integrity in everything they do. Sailfish Roofing, 772-263-ROOF. Community roofing company you can trust. Sailfish Roofing. Now here's WPTV's First Alert meteorologist.
Your WPTV First Alert forecast this afternoon, similar to yesterday, highs in the mid to upper 80s, will be mostly sunny throughout the day and only some chance for an isolated shower. Tomorrow, highs in the mid-80s, sunny skies throughout the day, and a few passing clouds with a 20% chance for those afternoon showers and storms as a weak front approaches the area. This front will not push all the way through, so temperatures stay on the warm side. Will be in the mid-80s Friday into the weekend, staying mainly dry with only a few spotty showers into the weekend forecast. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Welcome back. We are in the last Wednesday of October, heading into November. It's hard to believe, but today's a very important day, folks. Today, early voting has begun, so you can start voting today. Remember, the general election is November 8th, but want to remind everybody it's so important to have your voice heard. And one of my guests today was somebody that was previously on as a candidate, is now an elected official. We have with us today in the studio Commissioner Chris Collins with the City of Stewart. So, Chris, I'm so excited to follow up with you on this show today, and I appreciate you coming in because you won the election in August. We're now at the end of October. You've had a few meetings under your belt, and busy. You have been very busy, yes. And we're going to spend the hour talking about that, folks. And if you have a question or comment for Chris, you can call into the studio at 220-WSTU. That's 772-220-9788. And I'm also watching on my Facebook live feed on the Casey Ingram Show, where I will look for questions and comments there as well for Chris. In the meantime, I want to remind everybody that you can sign up for an email list I send out every week who the special guest will be on my show, and you can do that at thecaseyingramshow.com. And I also want to thank my sponsors. First of all, Indiantown Marina is one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities, and it's located inland on the Okeechobee Waterway. Very well protected hurricane hull. And folks, we're almost through with the hurricane season, but still, if you haven't made a reservation, you might want to give those folks a call to make sure you have a safe place to store your boat. Hurricane season doesn't end until the end of November. It's also a do-it-yourself and full-service boat yard, so any kind of work you need done, electrical, mechanical, bottom painting, pretty much everything, give the good folks at Indiantown Marina a call at 772-631-3272. Again, that is 631-3272. And don't forget about the best kept secret in Martin County. You can come by boat, car, or stroll the boardwalk to explore what the best kept secret has to offer. The boardwalk features local artists, an Airbnb, art gallery, boat charters, marina, and craft and creamery. There's craft beers, wine, and 24 flavors of ice cream, literally something for everybody in the family, and you can rent paddle boards and bikes, all kinds of stuff to do. And that is at the Fish House Art Center in Port Salerno, so we can call it down in the pocket. You can look them up online, thefishhouseartcenter.com, ahead of time to see all the fun things there is to do, or give them a call, 772-221-5482. The Fish House Arts Center. Also, remember that COVID, unexpected expenses, and illnesses, there are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Their focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. They never charge a front fee or deposit, and they're only paid if they successfully provide you a debt workout. So certainly give them a call for your free consultation today, 772-872-6099. Again, 872-6099. Or visit them online, commercialmortgagellc.com. And finally, public service equals public trust. This is a reminder to vote for Raymond Denzel. Ray Denzel will work for all the people of District 86. Ray Denzel is a problem solver and will always have an open door for you to reach him. Ray Denzel won't just vote the party line. Ray will vote for what makes sense for the people. Early voting begins October 26th, or vote for Ray Denzel on November 8. Political advertisement paid for and approved by Raymond Denzel, Democrat for Florida House of Representatives, District 86. All right.
I didn't know I could advertise.
You
on
can.
YouTube.
You can advertise on the Casey Ingram Show.
See? Now I know. Wow.
Next time around, don't forget me.
Yes.
So, geez, Chris, again, I really appreciate you coming into the studio today. Just tell me, what's been going on? What are your thoughts, your first impressions? You were elected again the end of August. You've been on that dais probably, 4 or 5 times since. Mm-hmm. And there has been so many things going on. We're going to talk about ZIP zoning or the ZIP process that's going on,
Yes.
and really what that means to different businesses here in the city of Stewart, and what you hope to get out of that. And of course, you're one of 5 commissioners, but Commissioner Collins, I've watched the meetings, and you really have taken a lead here. And
Thank you.
we need to focus on the direction in the future for the city of Stewart. So let's take a pause, right?
Mm-hmm. And first, let me say that I'm speaking for myself. I'm not speaking for any of the other commissioners or where their heads are at.
Right.
So everything coming out of my mouth today is how I feel and what the direction I think should be. So.
And it truly is that, Commissioner Collins, and to that end, so folks understand there are sunshine laws. You're really not allowed to speak with other commissioners outside your commission meetings. So, of course, this is your own thoughts, and you can't speak for the entire commission here today. But
Or
sunshine
the city of
laws,
Stewart, or
right. This
Right.
is Chris. We got Chris here today.
That's right.
Doc Collins. All right. So, Chris, let's step back for a little bit here.
Sure.
You were elected. What did you perceive to be the reason why you were elected, and what do you hope to provide for your constituents?
So I ran on, several different ideas, with the main being slowing the growth and the overdevelopment that I perceived, and talking to others that, I perceived from them. That was the major concern. So that's what I've been going after first. That's been the most important thing for me, is trying to figure out how we got here over the last 4 years, and how do we change that trajectory so that Stewart doesn't get lost to becoming another West Palm or Winter Park or just everywhere else. We're a unique area, and keeping that character for my kids is the most important thing.
I think one of the things that you were focusing on as you ran for office, there's a lot of multifamily developments in particular, apartment rentals in particular. So where was your focus there? I think you said there was about 3,000 units that have been approved in the last 4 years.
So the commission over the last 4 years, 2018, through 21, basically approved 3,000 units of new development, many of those being rental apartments. And for various reasons of how we develop, ultimately led to a lot of these being 3- and 4-story boxes that most of us feel like doesn't represent what Stewart is and its character and the tone and what we want to see when we're driving down US 1 or Canner.
And with those boxes, that's one thing we were talking about ahead of the show, as well as ownership. There's a
Huge.
difference between condos, single-family homes,
Yeah, it's not
and
just
apartments.
that I have some internal hatred of apartment boxes, even though it comes across that way. But it's also, who do we want to make room for in Stewart, and what kind of a town do we want to have, and who's going to dwell here? And a big part of that for me is home ownership. I think I'm rapidly getting the stigma as a single-family home only guy, but I do feel like single-family homes I'm a champion of, because they do provide the opportunity for people to own property and potentially a yard. And I think that's a special thing increasingly when you look at what has been approved. It's a lot of apartment rentals where the city owns the green space. Nobody gets to own a yard, and you live in your dwelling unit, and your rent can potentially go through the roof, and you have no hedge against inflation. You have no, but if you can secure a mortgage, right, that's, as far as I can tell, the single best hedge against what's happening now versus being in that rental trap that you can never escape, and, because you have no equity. So I would like to see locals be able to ultimately get into home ownership. I think that's a great way to come, like if we talk about affordable housing and coming out of poverty and leveling up for your kids, I think home ownership and that equity is huge. I don't want us to lose the opportunity for that when, all that's being built is rental apartments is the idea.
Now let's talk a little bit about the ZIP
Yep.
process that's happening right now. Tell people what
It's a lot.
ZIP is and what you hope to accomplish with it.
So for me, everything I'm trying to do is to achieve an objective, right? So if we're trying to look at and audit how we don't end up with more of what we've been doing, the zoning in progress seemed like the most effective way with the tools that we have to do that. So zoning in progress is an ordinance that the city enacts that says for a specified period of time, and right now it's 3 months, we're going to have a shield against certain types of development. And within that ordinance, we lay out the parameters for what that looks like. We had 2 specific resolutions within that ordinance. One is to shield us from applications for projects that include half unit density and 3/4 unit density measures, which we can go into if you want to talk more
I want to talk a little bit more about that.
And then the other is for applications for projects that are asking for more density than what they have by right. So specifically within the realm of multifamily, within the CRA, which is a zone that's more central within the city, that's going to look like 15 units per acre. Outside of that, it's more like 10. So if you're asking for variance or conditional use for, if you're outside of that and you want 12 or 13 or 14, well, your project is going to be shelved temporarily while the city hashes out its code, its land use regulation, all of that kind of stuff. While we're talking about it, we're going to shelf those projects temporarily, so we're not being bombarded with the very thing we're trying to get to the bottom of.
And that's for new projects, right? If they had
if
an
you already have your
application
application in, it's not.
And I think that was of October 5th. It was beginning of, I think, 5th or 6th. I can't.
I remember Mortel said the exact date.
Right.
It's like mildly retroactive from
Right.
when we first brought it
Yeah,
up. But
I think it, don't mark my words as well, people, but I think it was October 5th, I want to say. But so applications that came in since then, they're just put on hold. They're shelved until you get through this.
They can go
ZIP.
through the process with our development
Okay.
crew, but you're not going to get approved.
Okay.
And you're going to be subject to whatever the new rules are.
Whatever
so
the new
if we
ordinance.
change our density allowances or whatever, you're going to be subject to those rules.
Because one thing you brought up a lot, Commissioner Collins, is you just talked about the 15 units per acre within the CRAs, but there's a conditional use
So let's tell the whole
caveat.
story.
Yes.
Okay? Because I think telling it in this story is very valuable because it can get real technical and like, what is he talking about?
Right.
So let's say in the county, you want to be annexed into the city, right? You're on one of these properties that's contiguous with the city, and you're looking at, well, how do I get the most ROI for my project, right? You have 4 acres, and you're trying to figure out what to do with it. So under the county regulation and zoning, you might have 8 units per acre max that you can leverage with that property to produce ROI. Well, by right, even without any conditional use, the city will give you 10. So already you just bumped up. And now, if you go into one of these planned unit developments, right, the conditional use beyond your by right is actually going to be up to 30 units per acre. So you just went from 8 to 10 to 30. And now if you leverage using the half unit and 3/4 unit, you could potentially get up to 60 apartments. So you can't call them units because of the half unit thing. So you get 60 dwelling apartments where there would otherwise be 8. So part of the conversation, a big thing people are frustrated with is annexation. Like, how does the city just consume all of the county? Well, the property owner is the one who is asking to be annexed in. They're the one coming to the city, right? The city is not forcing annexation on these contiguous property owners, but in a way they're making it so seductive financially that they almost are. It's like you can't refuse this deal because it's so good. And so
Increases your tax base.
of course.
Annexing them in as well. And the
And
county
there's
can't say
There's
no.
always the unspoken, nobody's going to say it out loud, but you have the fiduciary responsibility to your residents, to bring in that ad valorem. But that's kind of the story of going from 8 to 10 to 30 to potentially 60.
And I think part of the reason why you're bringing this up is the fact that the city's pretty much built out. I think there was a few acres for multifamily, and annexing in is a way to continue. You can't really say how built out it is.
Yes and no. So it's always going to be cheaper and easier to take green space that's being annexed in and to build on top of that. It's more cost intensive to knock down, like they were talking about doing the Baptist church downtown over here, knocking that down and making that apartments. That's going to cost a lot more money and be more tedious with the firewalls, and you're kind of stuck in there. So always we're going to look to, if I'm a developer and I have the opportunity to buy that commercial property, and I know the city's going to let me flip the land use from commercial to residential, and then they'll let me go through that PUD process and get up to 60 per acre on it. That's the game.
Half unit acre, we keep talking about that a little bit for the dwelling units. Mm-hmm. What exactly was that half unit? I think
so there were two in July of 2020 as part of our comp plan amendments. There's a little provision there where they codified something they were already talking about doing, and that was counting apartments that were smaller than 900 square feet as no longer a unit, and anything under 1,200 square feet as 3/4 of a unit, so half and 3/4. And that allows you to go from maximum 30 apartments there to 60. So as
long as they're all under 900
it's a
square feet,
recalculation
basically.
of what a unit even is. It's a redefinition of a unit, even though there's going to be a person or multiple people living in that apartment. It's no longer a unit, it's a half a unit. And a lot of that plays into the school board fee, impact fees at the time. It's since changed. I think we've evolved it to where it's per door now until we can finally get the within the zip, get it dialed in, and probably I can't speak to what we'll vote on, but
you want to clarify exactly half unit, what it means.
But it was
I mean, we know what it means, but you want to clarify.
I don't want to judge it too heavily, but it wasn't very transparent.
Okay.
It wasn't. People didn't really understand what it was. It was something that ended up getting dug up by researchers and brought out. It wasn't.
I think there was
clearly
a
articulated.
Yes.
There's only one.
And I think that's the one that brought it to light.
Yeah. So when people are trying to figure out how the heck do you have 50-something units on an acre, our max zoning is 30. Well,
it was in the same square footage footprint, but there was a lot more units within
it's
that.
because we're counting units differently.
Right.
So,
how did parking roll out with the half unit?
That's part of it.
Okay.
Right.
All right. To try and clarify.
I
know that unit was a little interesting because they were using street parking, I think, as part of their calculations. That was a little interesting. But
that specific project was the most, the Elizabeth.
Right.
It was the most. I don't want to disparage too hard, but egregious. It was the most.
It opened a lot of people's eyes to what the
parking
half
doesn't
unit
make
could
sense,
mean.
and
Right.
So
right.
That opened up the box.
So what about properties? I know another focus that you have is just the designation of the use. You were concerned that we're going to give away commercial properties where maybe today commercial is not the best use, but do we know that's the case 15 years, 20 years
So there's
from now?
layers to this. One layer, and I'm going to use a specific project, is on Central Parkway. We just voted on this. So on Central Parkway, you have the lofts, which that's being built now. Okay, that was one of these projects that came up, and it went from being what I believe was, because I was not there yet, so from my recollection, about 80 townhouses was the original pitch when we're talking about the land use and zoning, right, going into that process. And by the end of that PUD negotiation with commissioners and the developer, it's at 190 apartments.
Wow. It started out at almost half.
And so part of the conversation of approving that project was the mixed use nature of that street.
Okay.
So like across the street, you've got commercial, so walkability.
Okay.
Right. If we're going to build these 196 apartments, these people will be able to walk to work. They can start, businesses in this commercial park,
Right.
and this commercial piece of land over here that's vacant right now can ultimately become something that people can own, work at,
A
or
grocery
whatever.
store.
Whatever. Patron,
Mhm.
walkability, right?
Right.
Well, my contention with this latest, it was a land use change that was up, is they were trying to take that existing piece of commercial property and flip it to condos on the front end, right?
Okay.
I don't know, who knows what it would have become by the end of the
Right.
negotiation period.
Right.
But 60 townhouses, but they needed the land use change, and we actually struck that down. We said no.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of that with the land use. So, again, the commercial, you're looking for something.
It can't just be what is ever most profitable in this very moment. You have to have more long-term vision, right, for a higher altitude of how residents are going to interact on that street. It can't just be that this specific parcel right here is
Right.
worth more money today as
For this use.
XYZ, and that's sort of that pitch of let the market determine. But that's the job of the city, is to, on some level, preserve its zoning. What is the point of zoning and land use if everything's up for grabs constantly?
Right. Right. You have a comp plan to follow.
And if you can flip all commercial land to residential, where does that end? If the market, if developers get to make that call.
So as you can tell, folks, with Commissioner Collins, I mean, being a commissioner, there's a lot involved in these decisions, and I can tell and completely appreciate how much thought you're putting into this. And you're looking at the city of Stuart now, what it was, and where you envision it in the future, how you think the constituents want it. That's your job as a commissioner. So there's a lot of thought that goes into these various projects and votes that you do. And, I think right now is a time probably for everybody in the city. When the election happened, all of a sudden it changed direction. Everybody could feel that there's a change in the air, and we're going to stop and really think about.
We should breathe. We should breathe with how much we approved and how fast, and see what the traffic implications of it are once everything's up. See how residents really feel when they see like Springtree. That's 270 units. That's going to be coming up.
So these are things that are approved and being
not
built
even,
yet.
not, some of them haven't even broke ground. But these are projects that don't even exist yet. We should give it some time and see how everybody feels about everything that's already been approved.
Once
and
it
what the
gets built.
implications are. I mean, it's been a busy summer
Oh, yes.
for traffic. And what does season look like? Not even this season, but the next couple once these are built.
That's right.
Costco's 380 units if that ends up getting
Approved down.
if the ALJ ruling is overturned and it gets built.
Right.
So you start talking about hundreds of units in these projects, and these are a lot of human beings on the peninsula.
Do you know how many units are out there approved that have not been built yet?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. But certainly those are things to take into account. And you just brought up another.
And even if they're built, are they inhabited?
Right.
They're being built. a lot
Right.
of them.
Well, there's something out here on Greenway Parkway that's everybody's been kind of talking about too. There's a lot of
There's
changes
a lot
that
of
have
stuff that's
happened
going
out
on
there.
right now.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's
a lot of stuff that's approved.
It has been a lot of building going on. We just have a couple minutes here,
Sure.
but and then we'll go to break and we'll come back.
Mhm.
But of course, we continue want to talk about the zipping process. And
Just
I really
zoning for an hour.
Yes, we're going to talk about this. This is, I've
Everybody
covered
sleep.
politics here for quite a while. This is the first time we've had a zip or zoning in progress.
Fair enough.
So I think it's a fascinating tool for the city to use.
It's
to,
an opportunity because you also have the development team. You have
Right.
planners that are going to have issues with the code that in real time and in their experience with developers they're running into that they want to have addressed. Commissioners, residents are going to voice how they feel
Right.
about what they're seeing being built. And we should all come to some sort of consensus and be able to amend it to augment the trajectory to something that is, everybody's happy with.
Have you
or-
been hearing from the developers a little bit like, wait a minute, we were
I think
planning
there
to
is some
build
surprise
this.
at how. I think there's an expectation often that people run on a platform because they have a sense of the pulse of
Yeah.
how voters feel, and that once they actually assume office, it's going to be business as usual. I think it was jarring to have, but I actually believe in what I ran on.
Right.
It's not just that I had a sense of how everybody felt. That's how I feel.
That
And
is.
that's what my vision. For
No,
sure.
the conversation we're having today, Chris, is very similar to the one that we had before the election. You
Right.
have not changed your platform, and you have not
Yep.
changed your way of thinking. You
I want to
came in-
evolve as I get more information and I mature
Right.
in the role. I don't want to just be galvanized in exactly
No,
how I
you-
feel today, but it should be an improving in decisions, not a sacrifice of
You're
what I
just
ran on.
you're putting Stuart's best interest in your
Exactly.
heart. We will be right back right after this very short break, and we'll continue on with Commissioner Collins with the City of Stuart. Forbearances, working remotely, internet shopping, retail space, and rental income have been hit hard by COVID. If you're looking to restructure your debt, obtain financing or equity, Commercial Mortgage can help you out. Tim Mullen at Commercial Mortgage has been providing debt restructuring services since 2003. Tim never charges a front fee and all consultations are free. Tim only gets paid if he provides you a debt workout. Looking for a debt solution or financing? Give Tim a call at 772-872-6099 or visit commercialmortgagellc.com to schedule your free consultation.
HR issues? Let WPSL, WSTU, and La Gigante fill your open slots in both English and Spanish. Call us 340-1590 for details.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jupiter, and Indiantown, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You're listening to The Casey Ingram Show on WSTU Digital 1450. Call in with questions and comments at 220-9788. 220-WSTU. And now back to the show.
We're back with Commissioner Chris Collins with the City of Stuart. He is one of our newly elected commissioners here in the city. And again, appreciate Chris coming in. He's been in office here for just a little over 2 months. And there's a lot of changes, and I know as time evolves, Chris, and I have you back in the studio, there's going to be so many more decisions under your belt to talk about. But the biggest one, of course, was the election really changed the not direction so much, but the air of a lot of development happening in Stuart. You and Campbell Rich were elected and said, hold on, let's just take a breather. Let's see what's going on with the City of Stuart. Let's make sure we're heading in the right direction. We're talking about a lot of, in that aspect, is residential, meaning apartments, condos, single-family homes. And Chris, as you said, you're a really big proponent of somebody owning their property. Single-family homes, of course. What a beautiful place to raise a family. You got a yard and all gardens, whatever you want there.
Exactly.
So the pride of home ownership does mean something. Before we left for break, however, we are also talking about traffic.
Yeah.
And, this is such a complicated issue, Chris, because we have a lot of traffic coming in. And previous show, another commissioner said a lot of it's coming from Port St. Lucie and St. Lucie County, and they just expanded their urban service boundary. I think it's 30 or 60,000 acres. I've heard both, but it's a tremendous amount of acreage where, of course, this is going to end up bringing in even more traffic, and we can't control that here. So,
I'll give you my take on that.
Yeah.
That's something I hear a lot is all of our traffic is from Port St. Lucie. I mean, that's just the way it is, and there's nothing we can do. Well, hold on. We just approved 3,000 units of new development, and we don't have to make it worse, right? You're on a peninsula. You have a pretty small land mass that if you pack too many people in, it's going to make traffic worse. And sort of the pitch from the consultant, I guess, that came in was, if we build more housing in the form of apartments, that will open up for workforce coming from Port St. Lucie to live and dwell in the peninsula, and then they won't have to drive, right? Well, what is the price tag on these apartments? At $2,500 to $3,000 a month for rental, you don't even get any equity. You're
everybody
renting, right?
knows how astounding the prices raised this year.
So, out the gate, that's what these cost as they're coming online, and who knows where they go from here, right? So you're telling me that just common sense, not deep in the weeds. I think you can get so smart that you are stupid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just common sense.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at that proposal, you're telling me that somebody who potentially owns a single family home in Port St. Lucie is going to sell that house and that equity in that yard, pool, whatever they own, right, to move into a rental apartment so they can just be closer to work. Does that make sense?
No, because
No.
First of all, St. Lucie's not that far away.
Right. And so beyond that, Port St. Lucie, a lot of those folks are taking 95, okay? And I don't think it explains why at 11 o'clock on a weekday you have traffic deep in downtown Stewart.
Right, right.
You can't blame it all on Port St. Lucie, and it's an easy out when you are. We got really good at doing what we've been doing over the last 4 years. We became a well-oiled machine at pumping out these PUDs, these planned urban, So does anybody necessarily want to take any flack for increasing the number of cars and people, and that makes traffic worse? Not necessarily, but common sense. If you increase the number of human beings dwelling in your city by 30%, how is that going to make traffic better? Please explain. It doesn't.
No, it
Right.
doesn't. It
Obviously.
doesn't. With that, we talked about walkability a little bit earlier. That's one thing that possibly could help take cars off the street is if you have, a place where you live and you can work.
But who lives here? Right? We want to project our progressive utopian dreams onto Stewart. But as a leader here, what is this place? Who lives here? Who's going to be moving here? And are they going to come here and not drive? You can make it as walkable as you want. They're still going to drive. They're not going to give up their cars. So at the end of the day, the more room, the more dense that you make it for people, right? The increased density is going to come with more cars. And that's going to cause more traffic. And the way that your city is set up, to go north or south, you have to go through downtown Stewart over that bridge.
Yeah, that's
it.
one way in and one way out.
That's it.
From St. Lucie
So
County.
common sense, your goal should be to make it as not dense as you can.
With that,
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing is always, there's a lot of people that have come in and spoke about affordable housing. And I think
I'm not
it's just
opposed
my
to affordable
opinion,
housing.
I think that's why they were approving
Yeah.
so many apartments. They were trying to bring rent down, and that just backfired because COVID and everybody moving here and everything's
Right.
exploded. So,
I'm not against having apartments be as affordable as possible, but there's a couple of questions that go along with that. It's at face value, it's one of those things that sounds good, right? Like, oh yeah, everything's expensive. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, we got to make it less expensive. Well, how? How are you going to solve that problem? Are you going to solve that problem by having the city give up land that it owns and have a sweetheart deal
I hope not.
so that a handful of people can have cheaper rent? Is that fair?
No, I don't think it is.
No. Should the city be just focusing on utilities and roads and the things that, and if it does have land, that land isn't free. It's not a freebie. The line I said is it's not a gift card.
Right.
That land was acquired and should be used in one form or another to offset the tax burden or provide utilities or services, right? So for me, I think if you're going to try to create an affordable housing situation where, when you say affordable, what does that even mean? You're saying basically that dwelling unit is lower than market rate. How do you achieve that? You'd have to have either a partnership with the government or you have to go to private sector and try to create some kind of arrangement where it's built or done in a cheaper way to where people can have cheaper rent at the end of it.
And let's be clear, affordable housing is not the same thing as low income or Section 8 housing.
There is a
different
spectrum.
terms. Mm-hmm.
So it's based on AMI, so the median income of the area, where you land.
Right, right.
Different types of projects will cater to or have a blend, But when we say affordable housing, right? Who can afford it?
Right.
What are you saying? More affordable
That's the
for
question,
who?
right?
And so that's where it gets difficult is you have this amorphic thing that you can't really tackle. And if the answer is just going to the government to give you less than market rate housing, well, that means that everybody had to pay for it.
Right.
Everybody's taxes went up or everybody's fees went up or everybody lost the ability to offset their tax burden. So I'm not against things being more affordable, but not if the city is doing giveaways.
Right.
Basically.
Right. Well, and there's something to be said, right? If the government is owning everything, could be a communistic way of looking at things.
True.
For the better of the good, we own everything and
True.
can dole out.
Fair point.
Yeah,
fair point.
So it's fair to everybody. It's just not really how America works and how we're set up. So I think it's important right now too. It's a discussion that's happening across the nation of local government and how much you do govern the people, how much you are involved, what type of policies you're putting in place. So how housing's just part of it. I'm thinking about electric cars. There's all kinds of different situations of where governments may want to mandate, but should they? And
Yes.
then, so that's kind of a broader topic here that we don't need to cover here today.
Whatever. I'm happy to
Stuart,
talk as much as you want.
Well, and we're going to come right back, and we will. This is wonderful. Again, we're speaking with Commissioner Chris Collins. He's wonderfully came into the studio to talk about a lot of the things that is happening here in the city of Stuart. And I want to remind everybody that early voting has started today. Mm-hmm. It's October 26th, and the election day is November 28th. You can go to martinvotes.org and look up your precinct as to where to vote. But public service equals public trust, and this is a reminder to vote for Raymond Denzel. Ray Denzel will work for all the people of District 86. Ray Denzel is a problem solver and will always have an open door for you to reach him. Ray Denzel won't just vote the party line. Ray will vote for what makes sense for the people. Early voting begins today, October 26th, or vote for Ray Denzel on November 8th. This is a political advertisement paid for and approved by Raymond Denzel, Democrat for Florida House of Representatives, District 86.
Ray got 2 ads?
He did.
Good man. Good man.
Ray did.
Smart,
He
Ray.
did.
Well played.
Well played. But Commissioner Collins, and of course, you're going to get out and vote. All of us are going to get out and vote no matter what. This is the time for you to speak your voice. And it's, as you know, voting's so important. And, the primary, I think, was just about 30% turnout. So I hope we get a lot better than that for the general election.
That's what surprised me, too, is going door to door. You get a list of who votes, and it's not as many people as you'd think.
No. Yeah, you can get a list of the super voters who vote and everything. And
it's the same people.
But there's a lot of people that let you know if they don't like a decision.
That is
but
true.
I don't know if they always get out and vote.
That is true. That is true.
Very interesting. So, Chris, sitting on the commission, what things have impressed you, either good or bad, surprising, what have you, that you weren't expecting possibly because you were just a citizen before, an elected official?
Right. As a citizen, I had, to be completely transparent, I had a somewhat adversarial feeling. Most of us won't show up to one of those meetings unless it's affecting our street or our neighborhood, and you're showing up probably because you're frustrated with a potential decision that's going to be made. So I had this kind of a hangover of being slightly frustrated with the process that was part of what galvanized me to run, But now sitting up there and being at those meetings consistently and working with them, I'm impressed with how professional everybody is and how much they care. And seeing that sort of cohesive unit of staff and commissioners, and everybody's trying to work together. And I don't get the sense from anybody that there's, hidden agendas or somebody wants to hurt. Everybody's trying to do, to the best of their ability, what they think is going to help Stuart. They're all trying to do a good job. And I would just encourage anybody who is even the tiniest bit feeling, because I felt like potentially running or being involved for a while, and I put it off. I want, no, it's not too much work. It's not worth it, and it's
life's busy. You got a family.
I got to feed my kids, right? But if you're even mildly interested, show up and just watch and be part of that. Not necessarily, wait till it lands on your doorstep and it feels negative. Come be a part of your local municipal government. It's so cool that you can have a voice, that you can have those 3 minutes to help guide the process. So I would say show up. And it might blow you away that ultimately you end up being a commissioner, or end up being on a staff or something. Be a part of it now. Show up.
It really can make a difference. And
It's
actually,
huge.
the person that's on the show, the radio before me, was also a candidate, Mark Breckbill, and I see him at all the meetings, and
Yes.
he's there, and he gives his input, and it's really important
it's
for you as
invaluable.
commissioners
He's
to
brilliant.
listen from
Yes.
people. That's right.
He's brilliant.
So,
And
to
all
just
of
get
those
involved.
color the ultimate decision that gets made. And we're all trying to weigh out ideas.
Right.
So the more ideas we have that are great ideas that can be in that soup, ultimately the decisions will be better. And if you
Right.
just leave it to, they'll figure it out, or I'm too busy, the ideas aren't, as quality. So bring your voice.
They're not. Bring your
Show up.
voice. You can also tune in online. You guys televise the
You can, but
meetings.
show up.
It's not that Chris says I want to see you. It's good to hear from you because
Come.
online you can't speak. I think they have a Zoom session, but it's not
Yes.
It's not the same as standing there at
It's a
that
special thing
spectrum.
in America that we get to do that. You know,
It
there's a lot
is.
of places where you can't speak up at all, and if you do, you have to worry about what might happen to you or your family. You know?
Right,
So
right,
you
right.
have an opportunity here. Don't take it for granted.
Right.
Come and be involved. Come speak to the direction. And that's a great segue for the Zoning in Progress workshop. Okay, so November 2nd from 4 to 7 is the first. I don't know how many we'll have or if we'll only have one. We'll see where we go from here.
Okay.
But that is the initial Zoning in Progress workshop. So if you are frustrated about the direction the development's been going, or you want more apartments, whatever your sense is and your ideas, bring them. Come, speak up. It's going to be at City Hall, but November 2nd from 4 to 7.
Very
Come
important.
be
That's
involved.
next Wednesday. That's next
Yep.
Wednesday, next week. So,
Yep.
and I'm sure you'll have a lot of people that will come and speak
hope
up.
so.
I think
I hope
a
so.
lot of residents are excited that.
And remember, everybody up there's working for you.
That's
They're
right.
trying to help. They don't want to argue with you or yell at you. We're all trying to figure this out as best we can.
And so, for those that are involved with the zoning and progress ordinance right now, you said it's for 90 days. So does
It can extend up to 6 months total.
okay,
Versus like a moratorium. A moratorium's where it's kind of an unlimited period of time where there's no new applications.
okay,
But this is a specific window for us to deal with our land use regulations and our comp plan and hash out specific issues, i.e. those two resolutions of half unit versus and density.
could anything else come of the zoning in progress? Like, could another issue be brought up 3
It
weeks
could,
from
but
now?
it's not really the appropriate time to do that. I'm sure, everything touches everything. So there will be other issues that sort of are a part of it, but it would be appropriate to keep it somewhat within the rails of those two issues.
Right, okay.
Now, there may be, we talk about our setbacks need to change, or our green space requirements, or potentially drainage or something like that. That could be a conversation that comes out of that would probably be brought up as policy changes in commission meetings.
And I think you've kind of alluded to that, Commissioner Collins, is the conditional use portion of it, where it's been said, well, we use the conditional use to make sure we get more trees planted or we get park benches or whatever. And your response has been, not to put words in your mouth, but that should be part of what's in our land development regulations. Is if we need to have this many trees for these kinds of spaces, it should be in there already.
It's a touchy and contentious subject, is how well we negotiate in that PUD process, what we give up and what we get. And you're basically looking at, as far as I can tell, and I'm new, right? But you're either giving up potentially decreased fees or costs associated on the front end with that process and making concessions like, hey, you don't have to have this detailed of a study on the parking or whatever. You're making concessions to make it more affordable for them, but ultimately what we end up trading is density. And if the people who reside here don't want that density, you're sort of offering too much of something that you shouldn't be. So that's my kind of argument, is what I'd like to see is maybe those allowances get tighter. Maybe we get better at negotiating for what we ultimately get, to where things dial back a little bit.
There's something else that's happening in the city of Stewart, and it's through I think the MPO, and that is the Creek District. I don't know how familiar you are with that. I've looked
So
at
the
it a little bit.
MPO is the Metropolitan Planning. That's more like traffic and the MARTI, and that's a joint with the county.
Okay,
But the Treasure Coast Regional
that's
Planning
it. Thank you.
is
Thank you,
working
Commissioner
on
Collins. Yes.
form-based code, specifically deploying at, and Jess Seymour is her name. She's who's leading that up, and they're specifically looking at deploying that at East Stewart and then the Creek District. That's the initial sort of. And I'm not an expert on that. I have sat through a few of those presentations, so I can speak, superficially to it. But the idea is creating a new framework of what the development in those districts will look like.
And just to explain to them, you said
Yes.
East Stewart, and then the Creek District
Creek
South
districts, so
is
like Colorado,
right.
and, yeah, kind of creeping out.
kind
but-
of the CRA, the south part of the CRA of Stewart and that
so
Colorado
from my
area.
end, the balance would be, how do you not make it too cost prohibitive, right? How do you not put too much demand on property owners, but also try to institute some sort. And what this looks like is, how high can you build? What are the setbacks? It's not too regimented architecturally, It's more to try to create a tone in an area. Like this district, this borough, this has a feeling.
Right.
And that each of those is a little bit unique and should meet like if we're talking about East Stewart, Jess Seymour has gone through multiple workshops in that community as to not impose, what she thinks is the best idea, but to really get feedback, like
what's the community want?
How can we create, a look and feel to this community that is unique and serves your needs? So that's the idea, is that you're getting a little more specific in your zoning and land use to that area and what its demands are.
Well, I think, and you probably agree that specifically Colorado Avenue has evolved so much in the last 5 to 10 years
Yep.
from what it was. That CRA, in my opinion, drastically helped that stretch. It used to be vacant storefronts, you know.
Absolutely.
And to see more bustling and people walking around, it's wonderful. And the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, what they're envisioning for that Creek District, I think is very special. It's more shops for people to walk and shop
I would
at
say
and you live there.
to her credit, Miss Seymour is not, just imposing her vision. She is relentlessly going and doing workshops and meeting with everybody to try to get their feedback on what that should look like.
And that's something that the commission is looking at right now. It's kind of
gone
rolling
to
through
the
there.
LPA, it's gone to the CRB board, it's going to the commission, then it goes back. Everybody's having input and throwing ideas around and trying to create that vision. So it's been a good thing.
And this is one of the neat things. If people show up to commission meetings, it's one of the things you find out what's going on out there, and you might want to have input. Maybe you live there, maybe you plan on moving there, whatever the
You have
know,
kids.
You have
You want
kids,
to
right?
have some say in what their city looks like.
So besides multifamily, that's certainly a focus with the ZIP. Where else are you going to be focusing your tenure here as commissioner?
So generally keeping Stewart special and whatever that looks like. So as things, it's hard to project because you're almost like a judge. So you don't know what cases are going to come before you. What projects and what are the implications of those projects. So it's hard to have like if you speak to a judge and they're campaigning, they can't give you a true sense of their platform, because that would sort of show partiality against. But generally keeping Stewart small town, keeping this place unique and special and what it is, and allowing it to grow in a way that is healthy, right? You want commerce, you want growth, but doesn't damage the quality of life for the people who live here. So if you can't drive to go patron that store out of fear of a car accident, then that's a problem. And if decisions we made 5 years prior and things that we've approved have created those problems, that kind of thing. Think critically about what we're approving and what Stewart's going to look like in 10 years or 20 years. Have a vision. That's part of the zoning in progress too. I want to bring that up is like, hey, let's not lose touch with the vision. What's this place supposed to be? Why is it special? Why do people want to why do we live here?
Right.
And then do the best I can to defend that vision as I have authority.
And we talked about this a little bit through your campaign, but your predecessor was a real outspoken spokesperson for the water. So where do you see yourself? Are you going to pick up that torch, or the city of Stewart, I think, as a whole, is a really good spokesperson for our water and has done so many things over the years to get cleaner water.
I have some pretty similar to growth, some pretty controversial river views too, I guess. I'm happy with the LOSM process. I guess that's coming online in February. But my frustration, I have a couple. One is to protect the seagrass in the lake, we can go into restoration mode and end up dumping. Even through all of this conversation that we've had and them feeling everybody out, there's no sense that dumping is going to stop.
Right.
There's no path to zero discharges.
Right.
There's and it has been forever, the hope that one day,
right,
when the EAA reservoir is built and all of these STAs, the not politically expedient thing to say is Big Sugar ends up having access to all that STA water. That doesn't go south.
Right.
Right? And why is the EAA reservoir going to be any different? If you can't tell me, as a defender of my city, I'm not having the interest of Okeechobee or West or Ag, or my I'm the watchman on the wall
Right.
for this city.
Right.
And so what impacts me is when you discharge into this river and that muck is on the bottom of that river and nobody's dredging that out, and every round it gets worse.
Right.
So for me, if we don't have a path to zero discharges and you don't dredge that out of my river, we have a problem. And diplomacy is amazing. I'm happy to be diplomatic. I'm happy to be on a first name. I can call you basis with whoever's at the Army Corps. That's awesome. I'm happy to go to River Coalition meetings and hear what the latest updates are on the oysters and the seagrass. But if you can't find a way to get one of those or both of those things accomplished, we have a problem. Because the next big heavy rain that's outside of the bands of whatever, we're going to get discharges.
We've been very fortunate. That's what people don't realize. They
But
think
we're
the
already
water's
starting to
getting
get
better.
up into that
We've had
15, above
fortunate
15 range.
Season, and they're going to start
it's been
discharging.
drought, but
Yes.
and there's no currently path to prevent that from happening.
Right.
So.
There isn't. We're still at complete risk for all these discharges that have happened. Just need major rain events. That's all it takes, and we cannot control that.
So I'm not as diplomatic as maybe my predecessor, but we need to figure something out.
Going to fight very hard.
Yes.
The other issue, and it's really starting to come to forefront this week, and that's the train.
Oh, yeah.
They're testing up to 110 miles per hour through the county. So I'm sure you've seen it come through the city, and the train bridge is the other issue that goes hand in hand with that. As a commissioner, I know people are going to start complaining the more that they come
Already
through.
at the last meeting, there were very accurate comments. And
Right.
it's this feeling of, for me right now, not knowing enough about the situation to figure out where to put energy, but this overall sense that if you try to do anything, you're entering into bigger issues.
Yes. Yes.
So it's something I need to learn more about. But right now, the job of the city and the commission should be trying to mitigate damage and make sure nobody gets hurt.
Right.
That's a big thing.
That's the scariest part to think
That's the
about right
scariest
now,
part.
to have
Making sure
110
little
mile an
kids
hour
that are
coming
playing,
through.
over there don't get hurt.
What do you know, if anything, about the bridge? I know that there was the Coast
Not
Guard.
much.
Not much. Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any good answers for that yet.
So, and that's something that'll be coming up as well. And I can
Just
tell
general
you,
frustrations. But no
it is
answers
general.
Yet.
There's nothing. I mean, nothing that's going to happen anytime soon with that bridge, because it just can't be rebuilt that quickly, and they don't have the money for it. So I think Brightline had said it's 5 to 7 years at the soonest if everything was in place today, which nothing is. So
Right.
it's a frustrating thing, and it's going to be very frustrating for all the residents. And I do think you're going to hear a lot more
Of course.
as it comes.
Just know I'm
about-
frustrated too.
And it wasn't City of Stewart. It certainly wasn't your decision to bring them through.
Of course not.
And they're here now. So it's just something, folks. That's one thing. Everybody, just please be safe. Please be cautious,
Yes.
and listen. Listen to the gate signals and the lights and all
Yes.
that, and let's hopefully we keep everybody as safe as possible.
It's the scariest part is you don't hear them coming.
And that's what everybody said.
don't
When
hear
it
'em
comes so
coming.
fast, and I don't know how fast they're going to be going when it goes over the bridge. Honestly,
I don't either.
at one time they predicted 79 miles per hour, and I thought that's impossible with that hairpin turn north of the bridge. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I know they've put the second track in and stuff, but a lot of issues here as commissioner. But you certainly have started out and holding true to your campaign promises, and I think that's important. And what's the feedback you're getting from residents in general?
Thank you.
It's huge.
Thank you.
It's
There,
huge.
there was a sense that, like I said, we got really good at doing what we were doing, and it was almost like a, train going full steam, and there was no ability to have input. So to be able to have a little bit more of a mixed bag up there is giving the community an opportunity to share comments and have more input. I think it's created a little more of a dynamic meeting.
With the single-family homes, now we only have a couple minutes, but only 1 minute. I really shouldn't ask this question. So I was gonna say there's not a lot of space for them in the city. I don't believe, right?
There's space, there's opportunity on the horizon, and like similar argument has been made for the apartments as supply and demand.
Right.
Is you need to produce stock for single-family homes too.
Right.
Otherwise, the cost of those single-family homes that exist in like Dolphin Basin and St. Lucie Estates and Palm City, they're going to go through the roof.
Right.
So we need to be also thinking about stock of our single-family homes.
Well, we are just here for the hour with Commissioner Chris
flew
Collins,
by.
City of Stuart. I know it. Thank
Yeah,
you so much for coming
absolutely.
in. Love
Anytime
to have you back.
I want to leverage your
Yes.
platform so people know what's going on.
100%. That's so what it's about, letting people know what's going on.
Yep.
Thank you, Commissioner Chris Collins, City of Stuart. Don't forget to vote, folks. Early voting starts today.
Ray Denzel.